Hello everyone. Today's topic is going to be a very interesting one, and so I will be talking about the concept of contact, and so what that really means to the human mind, then to what it can mean in what may project itself in the future. So you see, contact begins with how you are in touch with something. And so, for example, if a shape appears in front of you right now, or if someone comes in front of you, there's that moment of confrontation where you have an awareness to self. Now you have an awareness to the intelligence of other. It's as if you're not just the only man walking in this world, and so there's many others. And so as you're coming into contact with other human beings, based on the agreement of your reality, you will get close to people. Because when people look the same, they're going towards the same room. It's as if many people who fell in love with one another were always in the same spot. So they felt like they knew each other. They felt like they were, in quotation, soulmates. But these concepts shouldn't be taken lightly, because the unseen is nothing to play with. That means you're not trying to say what's there unless it is present through your direct experience. And so contact begins with your awareness to what is here. That is simply it. Because at first you are having an awareness to, for example, your body that is here, then the body's relationship with whatever movement it goes through. And then, after some point of living, you become aware that this life can be aware of itself beyond how it's normally functioning, beyond its, beyond its limited senses of association. You see, we want to see capable, efficient, and very able human beings, in the sense that they are just so aware of their life that they are thriving. It's like you're no longer trying to manage things individually, because you have such a collective knowing of what is happening. It's as if your moment is no longer being just handled with an individual sense of idea. It's as if ideas are not needed, because the knowing of the action never came from the idea. It always came with how aware you were of the idea. It's as if ideas are just shapes you're moving in front of yourself to try to discover new meaning. But it's the true meaning is really understood in what you are. Because man has a transparent sense of his own awareness, where it's not just one reality can be real to you, any reality can be real. I mean, literally see this, that human beings are being born, and in how they absorb ideas, they project what is real for them. In other words, it's as if we are a relationship in life that's always moving, so we can't measure it. It's as if infinity was something untouched, because man's touch could never reach it. It's as if we were not lost in smaller cycles, but greater cycles never kept us just us. In other words, existential movement is as if one aspect of knowing, through its lack of knowing, is turning into a greater sense of knowing. It's that moment all the cells came together and you were born. It's that moment where all life came together, and a moment was fruitful in ways that it manifested into different senses of expression. You must really see that you want to have an authentic sense of attitude with life when it comes to these ideas of contact and in exploring your reality. And what that means is you don't want to play games. So if you're 0.1% dishonest with yourself, that's still a game. One game is still being kept somewhere. So it's very important that you be authentic. And so there has been this idea that when you do something, completely be immersed in it. The fact that concentration is important, in how meditation, in its actuality, there is a very serious attitude, because it is the mystic's entrance into a new sense and dimension of experience. Of course, it's not going to be easy. All ideas that are keeping you in this existential sensitivity must, in a sense, shift in how you are aware of yourself, to then for you becoming aware of another sense of the spectrum. And so contact is change, but change being understood through individual reference points. And so it's very important that we are not trying to think of the intelligence of the tree with just the branches that we see. There's so many separations, it's all infinite. No, it all is kept through a holistic view, which becomes the movement of your experience in its awareness that externality was always an internal projection, so there is no longer that relationship even present. It's as if that yogi or that person who was seeking enlightenment, what he understood was that there was still an actor, and once the actor was gone, it's as if all man had breathed at the same time. All mankind. we need to really realize that before we go towards truth, we must see the truth in our imagery and our definitions. And that means your culture and your conditioning. Each human being has walked in a certain way in this life, and their walk is their composure. It's as if the way someone is holding themselves, it's not just what they decided to wear, it's just how they have decided to live. And so the awareness of living is not something that it will tire you if you're segmenting your life into different senses of time periods, you know? What that means is time should be real for you when there's a watch in front of you. The minute a watch is out of my view, I am just dissolved into a moment of now that needs no time, needs no sense of having to project space. And guys, you need to really understand this. When I say you don't need to, it's very important that you also develop a multidimensional sense of thinking. So if you've been listening to my talks, you've been realizing how words can imply many things at the same time. And so puns have really been entrances into the emergence of different realities. And metaphors and even fractals and all shape even. Because when I see that, if I'm in my own world and I look at this life, suddenly I have come into this view. And suddenly you have also come into this view, and we are seeing the same thing. It's as if 2 points of new are looking at something that was old to realize they are new together. So mankind needs to understand that contact is not a concept that will remain, because the individual consciousness in its movement and self-awareness is always a collective being. It's as if that is how existence is keeping you. That is how your fingers are connected to your palm. That is how the cell was always kept by the intelligence of the whole body. That is why you see all life, even your thinking, even the greatest thoughts of man have taken him to the core that was shared by all. And so man's mind is actually him going through his jungle at first. It's as if you were thrown into this world, and so imagery just came, and you were thrown, and in your landing, the landing was a bit rough, so you have a bit of dirt on your shoulder, and this dirt is all external reality and all conception, all form and imagery. But how can an image be aware of itself? Only in its recognition that there is no image. Only when this reality has become empty for you, you will find the peace that was beyond the struggle of that projection. It's as if you must recognize that your design is the design you're aware of in this moment. And so is it a great design? If an audience, if the whole UN suddenly came in front of you, would you be able to tell them what is up with life? And if you can't, you must realize that sense of you never will, because it's not the speech, your greatest speech is not for that sense of self. Sometimes you must go feel all corners of the room, and so it might get dark, The man who wanted to really understand space and time realized that he must go through certain dimensions of experience beyond his sense of comfort. That comfort and safety were illusion in a world where it's just shouting infinite change. Your sense of novelty is an entrance that your being does not have to be in the way that an idea reflects in conscious view. You are not here to understand that life is just an act in which the actor is lost to himself. There was a period of my life where I looked at these existential questions and I would not even go near them. What that means is that I saw that I couldn't. It's as if like seeing that moment where you see in the White House correspondence speech that was on YouTube, the president, no, not the president, the person who spoke before the president spoke, shook the president's hand with humility, It's as if he knew that the presence of this being is different, for example, right? And what that really implies is that there is an awareness of difference. And so when looking at ideology and certain ideologies, very deep existential thoughts of reality, I noticed that I was not comfortable to confront that spectrum because I was only identifying with part of the spectrum. It was that moment where I thought I was just a saint, that I was missing the reality of the sinner, which was also required as an advanced communicator, as an observer. Do you know? What that means is throughout your life, you will see that I can offer you any position, any job, any any mountain of gold. But you will suddenly see that your life is valuable in your awareness of the continuation of the experiencer beyond space and time. That is your interest. That is existential curiosity. It's as if that moment you see you're not really excited with the same stuff you had in your hand because you have just become aware of greater developments. What that means is that moment where I was playing video games in my house suddenly transformed because I realized the games of life. I realized, for example, that many things that I've been considering overwhelming, I should have never considered overwhelming. I instantly marched into. The minute there was fear, I must have instantly confronted it. Because in doing so, you will see that that fear is not stronger than you. That the imagery that you assume of conditions, even though for survival reasons, is there as an evolutionary process in you for you to see, for example, if there's a saber tooth in the bushes. But at the same time, you're conscious enough to see that one aspect of maintenance is also shifted in the sense that the observer is of a different intelligence, which is a different sense of maintenance. You know what I mean? It's as if, like, regardless of this external intelligence, at some point through my very deep contemplation, I noticed, what is intelligence? What is the definition? And I noticed external reality is the preacher. Oh my God, you thought people were preachers? No. All of external reality is preaching something to you. It is showing something to you. It's saying this is it. You might be like, oh no, I don't believe this. But you see, external reality is your direct communication. So when you look at direct experience, guess what? You see your problem. You see your condition. You see your circumstance at first. If you're someone who instantly tries to handle their fear, for example, or instantly tries to handle things that are overwhelming by not being a response, but by knowing that the observer is untouched. That's it. Develop and cultivate this knowing. That means that in ancient traditions they had said you need a certain practice, not for others, not to look good, not to go to a certain sense of, some fancy heaven that is like a better living room for you. It's a sense of wanting to surpass logic. It's that moment where you understand logic so logically that you're like, okay, now what else is there? It's as if that sentence, what else is there, is a run to infinity, as if man's ideas are suddenly breaking, It's as if you thought the Big Bang was just, something long time ago. No. There are big bangs happening every moment. Every street you turn to that you've never seen before is like as if it's like a big bang. A world has just opened. Every image that you see. Experience is a constant flow, and we have used a lot of cause and effect relationships because there's a delay, but cause and effect is relevant to the objective dimension, in the sense that it's just for shape. It's just how man uses shape. This cosmos is vast, and what that means is because it's vast, our intelligence is vast too. And do you think man, this very young species, has figured it out all? I'm pretty sure it hasn't, because it is more than man. It is because we were never mankind, we were just mankind plus changing into whatever it was transcending after the ape transcended into man, You must not be so hard on yourself in thinking that you are a certain idea, that if this idea moves, life has also moved, It's like, sometimes I've noticed it's very hard to figure it out because you are associating with it. It's as if like you've sat on the, or how would I say, it's as if that moment where you, let's say, have some piece of food on your face, and people are watching, and you don't realize what it is, but you say, gosh, why am I attracting these kind of people? Why do people keep coming to me? It's because the way you're aware of your idea of you is not really clearly aligned with how existentially open you want to be. So what that means is that sometimes our ideology is not really allowing our natural process to be fully made aware of. I mean, like, life will make you conscious of it, guys. Regardless of how much you sleep in class or sleep on the job or whatever, life in its most, when it's important, it will, in a sense, guide you to what you must be in your moment of being. Guys, I want to bring up these ideas that contact, right now I'm exploring the human's view of it. But it's very important to see that it's all a sense of co-creation and what the human being assumes to be the imagery for co-creation. Reality, before you use words, before you use language, it's images. Trust me. You know, before someone says something, you get angry. It's an image communication. It's as if like different colors in the same painting now have an ability to move around. Do you know what I mean? And so the painting's constantly changing and nothing's limited from the painting, you know? But it's just that the colors are not just in the same way. It's as if like it's this multi-dimensional canvas where the color you draw is also drawing different colors towards itself and another was merging. It's a very abstract idea. However, this all means that one day man will have to confront reality more than his form. And so that day is not an apocalypse. It is not the end of days. No, you know, your days never began to end. And what that means is that once you become aware of what you are with an existential awareness, a life-sensitive awareness, your ideology will always be inferior. It's as if your ideology was just, you know, your phone ringtone that you just couldn't put on silent, you know, and you were constantly hearing this call and, you know, you looked at it, who it is, you know, and it's like, I don't know, some company that's, you know, trying to keep you company. I don't know. It's very... Anyways, the point is that in your ability to be aware of yourself, you will re-experience ideology with a different sense of being, like a different sense of being alive, you know? It's a very refreshing sense, actually, because it's as if you from the beginning of your life, you've been a being of association. It's not that you're becoming a being of dissociation, but as the being of association becomes aware of the dissociation, it was never associated with anything. It's as if you realize that moment where, you know, that TV, the thing you saw on the TV screen wasn't you. You know, it's a different knowing, guys. If the TV screen, you didn't see the edges of the screen, you know, you couldn't really navigate. You'd think that's your reality, you know. I had a dream, guys, a while back, and in this dream, it was a very weird nightmare, you know. It was like, how would I say it? It's as if I'm in some alley, and there's like this very, very gentle, like, Indian couple, you know, and the guy looked kind of like Gandhi, you know. It's a weird dream. Anyways, so the Gandhi-looking guy suddenly comes down, and it's not Gandhi. I see, like, his face is totally different. I thought it was Gandhi, you know. And so he walks, and as he's coming in front of me, he has a gun, and he's aiming this gun to shoot at me, and I'm just moving back. So imagine it's one of those scenes where if I was some director and I was just explaining a movie scene, some guy's walking towards me with a gun that looks kind of like Gandhi, he has robes and stuff, but as he's coming, I'm moving back in the dream. So it's as if like I'm moving back, and I notice it's as if I'm moving back inside a building, but I have no idea where I'm moving back to. Suddenly, as the guy gets closer and the gun is being aimed towards me, it's as if for a second, I become aware and I'm in my bed, but the dream is still continuing. And this was mind-blowing for me. It's as if one aspect of my dream, it's as if like in the dream was happening on its own. It's like the dream was a natural phenomena. It was like my hand was in a river, and that's why my hand was getting cold, and I was like, God, it's reality. Instead of reality being cold, I just had to pull my hand. So, guys, it's crazy because as I'm going back in the dream, I find myself in the bed, and I feel what is still happening in the dream. And I don't know if the guy kills me or not in the dream, but pretty much what happens in the dream is that I navigate in awareness. So it's like I'm in my bed, and I'm totally aware of my bed. You know, I'm kind of still in a very, like my body's not awake yet, but my mind is in some way, and I'm just aware in my bed, and I'm also aware of the dream happening on its own, you know? So it's very crazy. It's as if I was still a part of me, maybe like 20% of me was still in that experience of the dream, and, you know, the 80% was just in my room, like, whoa, you know? So I realized that it doesn't matter how rational you think about things or logical. Life you're a life energy. You're a point of existential attention, and this point of existential attention, at some point in this life that you have come to do something in and to be something in, you will simply see that it will be a change. Like, it's as if you are found in your perfect moment, because you're no longer calling it perfect, and it's as if you're just always flowing, you know? The knowing is different, and it's as if, like, it's as if you kind of realize you've been associating all your hate and suffering with a certain amount of distance. I mean, like, when you look at the people you hate, they're in a certain shape, they look in a certain way, there's a certain distance, in your imagery they look a certain way, you know? So it's as if, like, your whole life is based on how you've been interpreting something. It's like you never changed your handwriting, you know? And so all words look the same, and you were bored and you're like, gosh, I could totally write something else, but why am I writing in the same way, for example? And it's because I've recognized, and the mind dissolves. So for example, when we're very individual, we have a better understanding of our collective sense. However, when you also move through different collectives, like in acknowledging your simultaneous sense of being as if you are the elegance of the hat of the pilot of consciousness, you will see that how you are keeping something is also keeping you in a certain way. And the minute you become aware of this, reality is not limited to the dimensions of your consideration. It's as if you are looking, but you're not seeing. And so it's a very transcendent feeling, and it's one that is very carefully outlined in meditative techniques. What that means is when you ask too many deep questions, some human beings have asked it much deeper than you, very long time ago, you know? Questions that even before we have come into, for example, this kind of society and civilization, you know? When you give man too much luxury, he gives himself so much because he loves himself that he destroys himself. You will see a part of you never wants you to be limited, but a part of you also sometimes thinks that others have to be limited for you to feel that limitlessness. Never make enemies. There's no such thing. You're just a human being and their life. And so sometimes in how you communicate with a human being, their communication is not just their words, it's just how they are, is what they are. Do you go to every tree and you're like, gosh, your branch is crooked, I don't like it, you know? You don't. It's naturally there. And so it is a sense of awareness to self. It's like that moment where you're like, okay, I am not the problem. The way I'm viewing life is the problem. It's as if I needed 360 degrees, but I was only lost in 10. And so guys, contact, as you become aware of what you are, becomes a different meaning in different dimensions. So what that means is I want to very playfully say that Mr. Within wants to say that let's consider that the human being has external dimensions and the human being has internal dimensions. The external dimensions are horizontal, the internal dimensions are vertical. What that means is that from the external dimensions, you really can't try to understand the vertical, but every moment of your existence has a vertical intelligence, you know? It's that moment where you saw there was always an intersection, but when you were aware of both realms, it's as if when you were aware of the totality of self within self. Now, external dimensions has imagery, has story. Internal dimensions cannot be communicated now because it's not that there's a veil, it's just that it's as if horizontal can never understand vertical, but this sense of vertical is how would I say it? The vertical sense is not shaped so it is the knowing of the intersection. It's very hard. It's very hard for me. It's as if the metaphors I'm using right now are having a bit of a hard time showing what I'm trying to say. How I would say it, guys, is let's forget the vertical, horizontal dimensions and simply see it as this. You're a human being. You're an individual being. You see that you are separate and other things are separate, but you see in your mind, it's as if there is no sense of space and time because you're looking around to see what time it is. You know, it's as if you don't innately know accurately. So that's why the space and time that is segmented is kind of elusive. I just noticed it. I'm like, if I have to check it every second, it's not the natural space and time I'm aware of. So this is why intuition and that, Native American tracking ability in the forest was very valuable because it was a self-awareness to greater flows of life which become your intelligence. So in a sense, your external dimensions, if you take the concept of contact, will just become overwhelming imagery. And you see overwhelming imagery, because you're a multidimensional being, is based on your choice. So you choose if what time you want to leave that party. You choose how much you want to be in a certain space and sense of experience of space and time and leave. And that's simply what it is. It's as if you're a moment of existential attention that has suddenly come into this reality where you're assuming that you're in space and time and that this box is a very vast box, but it's kind of empty, You simply see that it's empty because man cannot find its edges with only the level of intelligence it has. This life is very full, do you know? It's as if right now the understanding that mankind has of how the planet is and how the solar system is just the nail of this cosmic body. Because there's so many more different forms of creation that are present within the same space that you cannot judge. You are just multi-present. It's as if the being who thought was, he was being judged, would saw at the peak of his experience, he would be multi-present. It's as if at the end of days, actually, you'd look back and you'd be like, wow, I thought I was gone, but here I am. And so here I am is one of the greatest platforms where concepts dissolve into your existential and life-sensitive view. And guys, when I talk about existence, it's very important you see that when I say existence and existential views, I mean views that are from your direct experience, It's like not you watching a movie, you being in the battlefield. There's a difference. That difference is important. That difference is where man's mind becomes able. So externally, if you look at the external dimensions, contact will become your habit of reception. So your habit of reception right now is basking in ideology because you think you're an idea. But at some point after the ideas just simply dissipate like noise that fades because the silence is omnipresent, you will see that your understanding changes the allowance you get. So external reality is a mountain that you can explore infinitely. You can take so many steps, you can have so many ways of creation and co-creation. But you will see that higher dimensional beings will not be present in your reality if there is not an aspect of your presence present in theirs. So how you open up to the concept of contact, if we were to see more of an extraterrestrial view in this regard, is that you will be a co-creation. And now I'm saying that co-creation cannot be there unless you have an awareness to your internal dimensions. So now let me talk about the internal dimensions a bit. And what that means is that you as a human being are looking out. But the awareness of existence is not just sight. It's like right now you are a combination of how much you're seeing, how much you're feeling, and all your senses. But when you suddenly reach a point where you're becoming aware of what am I sensing, that question comes into your life, and that question becomes real. That means sometimes, the answers will not become real unless the question becomes real, For example, someone saying, what is God? They could be totally different people. A religious person, when he says, what is God? As if he's saying, what is life? But someone who, for example, let's say, is arrogant to that man's reality would be as if, what is God? I don't know. It's some image. I don't know. It's like this. It's this old guy in the closet. Look at the arrogance of how people create realities for themselves. Life is important to be cherished, and so when you are devaluing things to find certainty, you are always limiting yourself of the value of the whole. The minute you judge your brothers of existence or your brother in existence, you will suddenly see that it's you are keeping yourself individual. It's as if the silent person was beyond a speech. That means that sometimes I have walked and I've seen certain people, certain beings, even certain animals even, just being so still, as if just so still, you know? And in that stillness, it's as if I have not walked in the presence of an animal, but in the presence of an existential attention that was profound. So sometimes you see people are not here to show themselves to you. They're here to show you to yourself, because you are conceiving them. You are assuming what they are to then see what is real or not. So the internal dimensions of man is his multidimensionality in recognizing that he is nothing, and so that is why he is everything. I want to use the word nothing because nothing is not a word to fear. It is actually a word that you must experience. Like if a person through direct experience knows nothing, he will see that it's not like nothing. It's not just like the concept, like the average person who uses the word nothing, his experience of it is no thing. But an experience of nothing is like an empty experience. It's as if there are no forms, so how could there be any information on it? And so this is where the value of your internal dimensions opens up, in the sense that your reception is what is immediately in your awareness. What that means is that if I ask you, who are you, and that thought or whatever came into your awareness, is your immediate senses sensing? What? Once you realize how through this complex externality there has been always a simple observance, the simplicity in the observance will show you that as you in a sense become distant and move from an experience of duality into a more non-dual experience, your mind will project a certain flow where there is no preservation, guys. You know, it's as if we're thinking of life with a lot of preservation. It's as if there is no preservation. There is no idea that is, you know, the only idea. Right now, I'm looking at a stick on the ground with a bug on it. And the bug is very small. And the bug is just continuing on this, right? Now, we see that if the branch on the ground is the world and the bug is on it, it's as if our world has a shape, like our branch has a shape, and we're just walking through it as our own shape. But because we are associating, and in a very hierarchical sense of way saying that we are more intelligent, that is why aware, it's as if our playground has become what we see. You're always playing with your sight in the sense that you want to see more. So this insect will realize that just like how the branch is a different intelligence than the intelligence of the insect, the intelligence of me observing this whole branch and the insect is a different dimension of experience. So it's as if man is seeing that, okay, first there's world, there's objective reality, you know, then there's me, my self-awareness to it, and this sense of uniqueness and just being a more intelligent being, which is the ant or the insect. And after that, there is the observance that is keeping all of this here. The fact that if my eyes did not see this branch, that bug was never on that branch. Reality is something where you need a sensitive awareness to it, because if you don't, you will be assuming too quickly. And in your quick assumptions, it's not that you're going to affect others. Others have, you know, their own walk. You would be limiting your own walk. It's as if you're a mountain climber and you suddenly thought you're at the peak and you're like, I'm at the peak, this is it. And you were stopping and others are still continuing. They're like, are you sure, man? I'm pretty sure this is not the peak, you know? And you're like, no, this is the peak, you know? And they ask you why, and you're like, oh, because, you know, I'm touching this part of the mountain and it's real. Because this feels, this rock on my head feels like the peak. You know, it's just the peak. It's what I'm seeing right now. You will see that every great theorist or someone who's been trying to figure it out would see that it is in acknowledging their limitation that humility becomes the stage of a greater observance. You are ignorant, and that is your shape. If you want to completely get rid of your ignorance, you will become unshaped, and you will become gentle and calm, and to a degree where you will have such an awareness to the forms of reality where you're not just the movement of your body. For example, right now I have an umbrella in my hand. This umbrella, I'm feeling it with my hand, you know. But this certainty that I have, in like as if this right now in this moment that I exist, the knowing that is there of that this umbrella is in my hand is beyond actually how much the umbrella is in my hand or not. You know things regardless in how they happen. And so what that means is that it's as if you are your natural state is a multidimensional sense of acknowledging reality, because you're such an able and excited being, and on some level an aspect of you is just being kept in the dark, you know. It's as if that moment where you went to the corner of the room to see how it was all connected, because it was all shady and it was dark and you couldn't see it, so you had to go and touch it, and the moment you went to the corner of the room, you're like, oh, so this is how everything's connected, and you're just at the same time, you know, still in the corner in the shade, you know. It requires that your brightest days await you the minute you take a step towards them. What that means is, yeah, think that you're going towards a better life, and not a life that is something in which you lack and you're getting. Think of it this way, that you are abundant in ability to experience anything, and so you're simply experiencing this. We must have a self-awareness that not all beings are suffering in the way that we think we are. Suffering is a game of the mind. People who are still victims to trying to change externality will see that it is all an internal phenomenon, which is even how science is composed based on its understanding of biology. And so philosophy has been man's attempt to try to linearize the unknown, but God, it's held by non-linear corners. It's as if the corners of the room are non-linear, so stop trying to figure it out. But understand that it is in your working with your experience and your consciousness, it's how aware you are as consciousness that becomes the greater existential allowance that is your presence in those realms. So the concept of contact becomes how your awareness to what is internal and external dissolves into a sense of moment that is such an ability to co-create the possibility of any reality. You become a human being where extraterrestrials are not just, you know, they're not just exciting imagery for you. They are your experience. It's as if that person you thought was channeling was not channeling. There was no other being. It was just that being who was saying that I'm channeling this thing was just how he could communicate it, but his experience was of a multidimensional nature. It was as if presence through presence. It's as if we and you might be individual beings, but if we all stand in the same room and begin talking what's on our mind at the same time, if there was a recorder in that room, that would be one mind. So you will see it's the fact that your individual aspects are working together that you are a collective entity. It's that moment in which the communicator, there's a question asked and he's like, I shall answer this with my unknown, and as such intensity of usage of mind and form comes. I will of course give many talks on what many people at this stage in quotations consider as higher dimensional communication or channeling or talking to other entities. There's a great confusion there which needs a clarity, because the minute you get that clarity, all your communications to reality become efficient. It's as if like you're acknowledging it in the wrong way, and that's why there's a sense of experience in your pod that you're not getting fulfilled by it. What this means is that throughout your days, you will look at the nights. And you will see that your ability as a being is not to change things in your environment, but to be aware of all changes. In other words, if Martin Luther King was too busy reading something, let's say magazines or something, he would not have the stillness and peace of mind to see what was wrong with how human beings were communicating at that time. You need to give yourself the calm that will even teach you what kind of storms have passed and are coming. And storms is not a bad concept, you know. A pilot is not bothered by the storm because he has trust in his navigation. And so once you see that your trust is a natural phenomena, you have always trusted your existence, and that is why you still exist. That is why so many people have very beautifully actually said that it hasn't been your time. And so in Arabic there's this word, I believe, that is called maktub, and that means it is written. It was written, you know. And it's very important because destiny is meaningful in a context of direct experience. If you try to explain your destiny to someone else, you will not be capable unless it is your time to communicate a prophecy. And that means it's as if, like, for a second you realize is the energetic being you are, the intentions of your communication are required. It's as if, like, for a second you stand back a bit and let a great communication come through you and then continue on throughout your normal days. And what that means is that you become a moment of life that is so clear of itself that it has seen itself before it has walked. It has seen the end of the road before it has got there, but it doesn't mean it's the end, you know. And so you don't need to be lost in the experience of someone in certain shoes. Back in the day, I'm pretty sure caveman didn't have shoes, you know. So you don't have to be in anyone's shoes, or you don't have to be in your own shoes. You don't have to be in your vehicle of thought or your ego or your identity, in the sense that you have to, it's as if every time you thought you were depressed, you were also creating new imagery for your depression. And so it was your act of attention that was really what was causing the problem, not the condition, because you always move beyond the condition. The condition changes as much as you do, because you will see that the fluidity of consciousness is that no reality has to be stuck. In an instant, you can dissolve and change this externality into a totally different experience. But the knowing must occur naturally. And so this is the important thing, because many people are looking at gurus, and I'm like, it's fine that you go towards a guru in which you're attracted to, but the guru wants you to get a greater understanding in life. And so the guru knows that if you ever choose to just learn directly from life, that's the best way, because that's probably how the guru learned himself, you know? It's like you're not a football player unless you've actually kicked the ball, you know? You might understand the game, but you don't have an experience of it. You don't know that moment where you're diving and you don't know where you're diving, but you do this header and it goes in the goal from such a very crazy angle, you know. So it's very important that you recognize that your greater ability, you might not have the images of understanding it now, but its momentum is always there. And so that is how you know yourself. You have that faith in your presence, in your existence. It's as if when people look at him, it's like, he doesn't believe a single thing, but he is standing in this life and basking in such an existential knowing. As if that for the end of his life, nobody said anything to him, this man would walk in his comfortable silence. And so that is when actually, it's not really silence, but you're more in your internal dimensions. So when I was younger, I was a bit ignorant to my physical responsibilities. So that when a problem came in, I instead of externally handling it, it's as if I took the punch, and the punch was being handled in my internal reality. And so it's as if externally I was just this very silent, introverted, you know, box, moving box, and just until I really broke that box and stepped out of that box and realized that our assumptions are ridiculous, because we will see that we will have greater assumptions. We will have greater understandings of reality which satisfy. And you will really see that, guys, be aware of the experiencer, not just the object of experience. Be aware of the observer, not just the object of observance. Because it is then when you associate beyond the imagery of an object It's a very dangerous thing when you tell a human being, which is a self-aware multidimensional intelligence, that he's only one in a certain range of dimensions. Because when you say that to him, it's as if you are covering one of his eyes, and so his balance is off, you know. It's very important that, you know, it's as if like you're covering your left eye because you want only what's right, you know, and so you're walking with one eye and wondering why others are seeing a bit more when, you know, they're not in the same place as you, why others are happier and you're not. Happiness is your ability to just compare yourself to someone, and at the end of any comparison, you see, you never need to compare yourself. Let's assume you never met a human being. Would you compare yourself to anyone? No, you would just compare yourself to yourself. You'd be like, yesterday, you know, I ate like a berry. Now I'm gonna go eat like, I don't know, an apple or something, you know. If you were a caveman back in the day and there was no human beings around. Really, like literally no human beings. You know? So it's very important to see that energy does not exist, and you must not try to linearly interpret what the Creator is doing. You must see your creation so clearly that you see how the Creator has designed you, and in that design, it's your awareness, your internal dimensions. And so external reality becomes one where contact is a dream because you're aware where you're awake, and your awakefulness is in nothing, actually. So it's as if nothing is completely aware, but as long as there's something, there's all duality, worlds and spectrums and hierarchies and deities and so many other forms that just, you know, turn into other forms because, you know, different forms are interacting. I hope that man recognizes you need to keep a certain level of excitement for yourself by acknowledging yourself more than who you are. So on some level, keep a sense of knowing for yourself that regardless of who you are or how much your productivity is in this moment, it's not as important as how aware you are. So if you came to me and you were like, I want to, let's say, develop myself into the greatest this or something like that, and you were just like, how do you, you know, if you just asked my advice as if I was just some kind stranger, you know, I would tell you, I don't really think the focus should be now on how your ambition should look like and how you should get those shapes. That's like a very caveman attitude in moving towards your life, in going towards your ambition, you know? It's like one mentality is like, oh, I want money, I'm gonna run and get it, you know? But another mentality is like, I want money, but why do I need money? And so if I do want it, what are ways of getting it? What is attraction? How should I take my steps in a field where there's muddy parts and there's also very dry parts, you know? Should I create a road? Should I walk? You know, it's all these considerations will bring you to a sense of mindfulness in that in a moment of not reacting to how juicy your ambition was, you let yourself be humble enough to say that I don't know anything about this field. So if someone was finding themselves incapable of, you know, going towards their ambition or doing something, I will tell you, before you try to increase your ability, who is able? Become aware of the source of your intelligence, whatever that could mean to you in whatever story of life you think you're a character in with certain characteristics. The greatest advice that one man could tell to another man is that don't ask me. Because in your awareness and remembrance and in observing your life, you will be the clarity of that action. Do you know? I mean, you can search for Google, you know, you can go ask other people, but if you were just someone who just sat still for, let's say, like a couple hours, you would see that you would be observing your ideas to a point that it's like that moment where you were reading the questions on the exam paper before the exam began, you saw that you were aware of something before your action. So it's very important for you to sit still and simply see how real is your ambition. Because sometimes, you know, the end of your ambition becomes more inspiring, interesting for you than the beginning stages. It's like you don't want to go through the hardship, but you want to, you know, suddenly have that very athletic body, you know. No, you got to see the reality of it is that what's real for you is simply the distance and the steps you take. So you're in the park, you're not at the end of the park, so don't think that you can take one step to go to the end of the park. You gotta walk, you gotta go through different experiences. Your communication has to amplify, and your world has to get involved in you as much as you're getting involved in it, you know? And in that sense, you will see that clarity is helpful when it's always within you. You know, you don't want just a limited sense of clarity. You don't want a dose of clarity. You want such clarity that you know yourself. You're aware of the origin of your awareness. And that is beyond any complacent desire, you know, if I can say that. It's like, do not be bothered when you were never there. Don't complain when you're never in the limited reality of that complaint. Don't communicate realities that you don't like, you know? Like, for example, if you don't like, for example, gossip, don't gossip. I mean, why, you know, it's like when you do a bad action, the reason they tell you not to do it is not just, oh gosh, be moral and be a good citizen. No, they're saying, don't shift your reality suddenly. What that means is, like, if you bring like a young kid and suddenly put all the worst movies in front of them, made by directors that were inspired by various forms of brutality, but it's something that you see, regardless, until you're self-aware, your life has not begun, because your environment and your circumstance is defining you. Be aware of your external dimensions by being aware of your internal dimensions, by being aware of what that relationship even means to you, and then seeing that life is valuable because it's your walk, not anyone else's. And so walk calmly, walk at your own pace, and enjoy it, you know? It's like, this is a dream where you can dream in it also, and at the same time, you know, there's less movement, but there's some movement, you know? Like, I can't suddenly turn into a cloud of light, but, you know, I can design it on a, you know, draw it on a piece of paper, for example. You know, there's a bit of limitation, but the limitation is there to preserve an individuality that wants to develop into something greater. You cannot ever condemn something or say that something is wrong, because there's many dimensions in which that same view can be received in a way, you know? It's as if me and you can look at the painting from many different parts of the room, and so it will be a different painting every time, for example. Before wanting to make contact with anything, get in contact with yourself. Try to explore what existence means to you, and do it calmly, gently, and hopefully with recommendations from meditators from the past. And so what I mean is that, for example, for me, there's many different types of meditations and stuff, but I noticed that why was the meditation? The meditation was for an existential awareness. So, for example, the Upanishads for me, in how they communicated, was more real than certain other meditation things. But again, it's how you're working with yourself, and so perhaps meditation is just how a Buddha sits. As if the Buddhic nature is there, as if your collectivity is always here within your individuality, because your individuality cannot exist without that spectrum. I mean, think about it. If you were just a moment of awareness, you would see that you're aware of just these relationships, and so there are many relationships you can be aware of. So that which is aware can be aware of anything. So as if right now that I am a moment of existence, other beings are a moment of existence too. You're existing in some room in wherever you live or whatever, you know. So as moments of existence, that which is aware of existence or experiencing the existence is more important than this environment that is defining individuality that finds itself incomplete. Your completion is a shift in your self-awareness, in which it's a knowing, and so you are basking in such blissful simplicity that there's nothing complex. There's no problems. It's as if in an instant everything clears out. All those things that you thought were karmic chains are just gone in a sense, you know? And so you're just becoming aware of how all those things you thought was your problems, all the bad things you did and all the good things you did and all that karma and maya is in actuality similar to how I transitioned from that dream, and so I was not subject to the experiences of that form of, let's say, externalization. You know, sometimes if you ask someone what does insanity mean and what does sanity mean, they cannot tell you unless they have, for example, an insane person in front of them to compare it to and be like, no. So we will see that insanity and sanity begins when one aspect of existence wants to confront another aspect of existence. And so if you are still choosing to shift your experience through ideologies that are judging things and changing their values, contact will become or will still be received by you in an elusive manner. Think of it this way: as this moment of existence you can receive things in an elusive manner, and you can also receive things in a clear manner. And so to receive them in a clear manner requires that moment where you put down your pen to be aware of just what you had written. Do you know what I mean? It's like that moment where you're giving yourself a timeless and spaceless moment to be aware of all space and time. And so as you will see that because you have an ability to be within an external reality of co-creation and in an internal reality of just only creation, you know, there is, in a sense, always more than what you think you is. Do not be convinced, because infinity never needed any convictions. You know, you never needed a sense of certainty. Is a mind game at first. And so when certainty is not based on ideology and existential knowing develops, that is much more able to use its ideas. And so the concept of contact becomes much more interesting for you because it's involving more of your life processes. As if that person who thought he was communicating to something turned into more than a thought when he saw everything in his life had led to a moment. It's as if that experience connected his whole life. Every memory, every purpose. It's as if one experience you can have in the future will make you complete beyond how you think you're incomplete. You know, your depression will fade in an instant. You become self-aware to your vastness as a being. But this again requires your approach to truth and also your approach to what direct experience means for you. Because, as some men have said, some just get wet in the rain, some just get wet and others feel the rain, you know. It's as if like your interpretation was this movement you're doing on another movement. And so when you are doing a movement on another movement, there's a sense of illusion. It's as if like, right when I'm trying to jump from the stepping stones, I'm also spinning in the air. You know what I mean? It's like unnecessary. I hope that this talk has served you in kind of giving you an understanding that contact is actually how you're aware of life and how that displays itself based on your existential sensitivity, that there is an outside world or there is an internal knowing that is simply everything regardless of interpretation or ideology. So it's simply an awareness. And so self-awareness is the most crucial tool for the modern man. For in his modernity, he has always carried his antiquity. Much blessings and namaste.